Maiya, we have Charles, founder of Energy Converters, and we have founder of Onyx Scholars. So I brought you out here because basically it's like been this big thing where we're pushing scholars to go to HBCUs. So, and I know, Charles, you've been leading like the research on A and G requirements, like even getting into college. So we're going to get on that later. But first, Ms. Maiya, can you please introduce yourself to us and tell us a little bit more about Onyx Scholars?
Sure. So my name is Maiya Edgerly. I am a third-generation West Oakland resident here in Oakland. And then also, I've been in the education industry more so than 6 years, and I'm the founder of the Onyx Scholars program here in Oakland. And we are an HBCU college readiness program here, and we were founded in 2017. And we send most the demographic of students here in Oakland to HBCUs, historical Black colleges and universities. And we help students navigate. So our mission is to help a robust group of students here, inner city students here in Oakland, California. We help them matriculate and navigate them through that admission process of the HBCUs. We saw that there was not too much promotion about the HBCUs, and we saw students, not having too many options as far as college was concerned. People just thought, UCs and states and community colleges, and I was actually one of those students myself too. So I wanted to uplift, and let students know about the great HBCUs and what there's so many of them, and there are schools and institutions that are made especially for people of color like myself. So that's how Onyx Scholars started, and that's a little bit about the work that I do here. I love students and love the work that I do.
Can you shout out your HBCU?
I went to the great, luxurious Texas Southern University in 3rd Ward, Texas, Houston, Texas, 3100 Clyburn Street, 77004.
It ain't the Fort Valley State University, but I do salute y'all. I salute all my HBCUs. I love all my HBCUs out there. Brother Charles Cole, can you please introduce yourself?
I know.
About you, man.
So my name is Charles, and I'm the founder and executive director of Energy Converters. And basically what we do is we focus on the voices and agency of the end users of education. So the end users of public education are students, their parents, and their community. And one of the things that we try to do is we wanted to really break that bubble where people just do the bare minimum. Oh, we got some youth voice here, we got some parent voices here. And I wanted to have actual scientific reports that we taught students how to conduct and to lift up the voices of other people. And so we do two different things. We have our policy goals. What's the changes we want to see? How do we want to improve education through policy and all that good stuff? Because that's what funders like to hear. But we create this other thing here at Energy Converters called agentic goals. And the reason why we did that, first you got to understand what agency is. And that's, I want my young people and my parents and the community that I'm from, I want them to know what quality is. I want them to know when they're getting it and when they're not getting it. And when they're not, I want them to have a course of action to change that. And that's the ultimate kind of definition of agency. So when I say agentic goals, we might have like these policy goals that may or may not win or take effect. But we also are concerned with what are we helping students with Monday morning that got to go to school right now and navigate this jacked up system. And that's what we tend to spend a lot of time on. I don't want you to have to need me and depend on me or Marquise moving on, right? I actually want to get to a point where I'm somewhat obsolete in your life and you know what quality is and how to go out and get it. So that's what I do.
Yes, and Charles, you bring up agency a lot. And so would you mind sharing us like what is the agency goal that you have?
Yeah, so an agentic goal, so for instance, we're doing all this work around A through G. And for folks that don't know, in California, we use this system called A through G to help us decide if you qualify for a UC or a CSU, by which the private schools and out-of-state schools will use the same measure. So if you're good there and qualify for a UC, you'll get in somewhere, right? So the policy goal is how do we make that more accessible to people? How do we change these horrendous numbers? What are the rules? The agentic goal is that we train 500 students and 500 parents to be able to look at their own transcript and look at the A through G requirements and be able to reconcile those things and advocate for themselves. That's what I had to do as a student. And when we, in Oakland, the reason why we need that, even amongst all this policy stuff, is when schools are boasting about graduating more black boys than ever, more black girls than ever, but then you look at the A through G numbers and who is actually eligible for universities. And by the way, you're promised a spot in a CSU if you qualify at a certain rate. We had kids that should have had free spots that couldn't finish the application because they weren't A through G eligible, and they just didn't know. So that's why we build what's called agentic goals, and that's an example of one.
And so what you saying, a lot of them didn't know, Maya, this was for you. So basically, I just really want to get your reaction on this. So with a lot of scholars not knowing what A through G was, so we got the voices of over 400 scholars. And so of those 420 plus scholars, 50% did not know what A through G was. And so the next question was, has an adult or anybody ever went through the transcript with you or actually went over A through G? And the numbers even got lower with that. So is it like, what are your thoughts about scholars like not even having these relationships with their counselors to know what A through G requirements are, and even if they are eligible for it?
No, sure. No, the students that I've worked with that have come through our cohorts, you know, we sit down and we actually have the one-on-one, you know, economic. The first thing that we do, for the requirements, you have to have at least a 3.2 GPA to actually attend Onyx Scholars. And then also too, they have to bring, you know, their transcript. And there's many students that we've helped that, you know, that don't have a great relationship with their college counselor, and they don't tell them, you know, they really don't go over the, you know, the different requirements that it will take, you know, to be eligible to even attend a California State University or even a UC. So they don't even, and sometimes in my personal situation, when I attended school back in 2007, I had a college counselor tell me, you know, hey, you may not, it's just, there are some, in a lot of situations when you're dealing with students of color, you are dealing with, there's some, those college counselors really don't have any kind of, I want to say, like, that interaction with them, and they derail them into these places where it's just no hope. So either they'll even put you into, and I guess in a way you could say that's when the prison pipeline comes into play, but you know, they really, with kids of color, they'll put you in, you know, a certain just basically just tell you, oh, you should look into a community college and things of that nature. And they really don't take the time and really go over, you know, the academic, those transcripts, and really help them as far as like get that information for SATs and everything of that nature. So I get kids, I have to work with them from ground zero. And that's when we actually go over, you know, the requirements on what HBCUs, you know, that will meet their needs, and just basically have it's with the, I guess to me, just to say this, is that the college counselors here in Oakland Unified School District, West Contra Costa County, as far as the development of African American students, it's not the best, and it can be better.
And so I heard you bring up transcripts. So when it comes to like just going over the transcripts, like how important, Charles, is that to you for scholars to know how to read a transcript, but also like how can we allow parents to demonstrate agency as well too, so they're able to navigate through their transcript as well, so they know if their scholar is A through G qualified.
So when we talk about the importance of transcripts and empowering both students and parents around understanding how to read that and where to go next from that, right? I think it's incredibly important because I think Ms. Maiya was incredibly nice when she said that counselors in Oakland and West County are not always the best thing for black students or brown students or whatnot. Let me just say it so it's just not, I don't want there to be any confusion. No, it ain't even about smoke. You just got to understand the systems that you're dealing with. The system wasn't built for you to be the thing that thrives in it, right? So why would you subject yourself to a system that don't love you, that has no like DNA or moral like tied to you to like do something different? Power doesn't concede itself. And so one of the things is the same reason that black people became literate right after times of slavery is the same reason I want black people to be able to read their transcripts. It's not just about leisure, it's about safety and prosperity. And so if I can read my own transcripts, And I'm calling and not just calling and meeting my counselor in the last semester or whatever the case is, but I'm calling in 9th grade. And I tell parents that they should be calling or setting up a meeting at least once, maybe even twice a semester. And you should know your kid's counselor by name. Hey, Maya, it's good. I'm just checking in with you. Me and the boy done went over his transcript. It looked like he did well here, here, and here. Just making sure we on track with everything on your end. Give me a call if you need to. Even asking questions a certain type of way. Well, I know this because I started my career as a social worker. And kids were having the same experiences that Maya was talking about. They weren't getting helped. Their parents were getting a runaround. They couldn't get a class changed. They were actually enrolled in classes that weren't the classes for them. But when I showed up with some authority and I used certain terms, all that shifted, all that changed. So when a student is asking a teacher or a counselor, hey, I'm checking on my A through G status and I'm trying to see what's up with that. Can you help me with X, Y, and Z? It's really different. And that's what knowing the language does for you, is that people pay attention to you differently when you know the terms. The other thing we coach our students and parents on with teachers, we train parents to ask questions to Marquise. You're an amazing teacher. Hey, Mr. Marquise, what's the goal of this unit you're teaching? What's the thing that my kids should be taking from this unit? When a parent or a student asks a teacher a question like that, where it shows a respect for what they do, I'm actually really checking on stuff, and we all dedicated to making sure this boy gets where he needs to go, then now that parent is not a coach of their team as opposed to like somebody from outside the stadium yelling at like the opposing quarterback. And if we gonna change things for us, we gotta get the policies and stuff right, but we also gotta teach our people how to navigate this broken ass system that don't love them. That was a long-winded answer, brother. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Before you go, I just want to add in something else, because I want you to go back on the transfer part about even parents portioning what's been taught to their child, because I think sometimes we come to that misunderstanding where some parents look at the report card and think, oh, since my kid is passing, that means that they can understand the master's standard. But I mean, I don't know if you want to speak on that, but how does that tie into literacy as well too that you brought up?
Go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt you.
I just wanted to just say that learning how to read a transcript, and then too with the parent advocacy, I think that's super important. And with people of color, and given the fact that, with Dr. Cole saying that, we are, unfortunately, this education system is not made for, for students to thrive, for inner city African American students to thrive. And the prison pipeline is something that's very, very real. I believe that, parent advocacy, if the parent working in education and coming from a family of educators, when educators see that a parent is involved, there's going to be a different shift. There's going to be a shift of respect, and being involved in your students' education, shows, and especially indicates and shows that system that there is a support system here. So you can only do so much. We're making that investment in our students' lives, so we expect some type of excellency in return. And the thing with that is that sometimes that's just not the case. But one thing I did, and I know I'm jumping from one thing to the next, but one thing I want to say as far as like the transcripts and the A&G requirements, some of the times when the African American students, it's too late. Sometimes it's way too late once they have that conversation when they want to talk to the college counselor. It's a done deal. And they realize that and recruiters, I tell students too, recruiters are looking at your transcript your junior year. And then sometimes when the kids come and they want to talk to their counselors, it's like everybody's getting excited about college, the college admissions dates and everything of that nature, and they realize that my grades are not up to par right now. And then too, my grades might not, with that recruiting, some kids, they don't even know that. And I just think access to information too, and when you have a parent that's not really active in your student's life, and they're getting lost in this system, because I've seen that. We see that at Oakland High School, at Oakland Tech. You see the segregation of schools. You see black students, not having access to information. They're not being put into these high class academies because their parent is not a part of a high class PTA parent board that's thriving and really making the underhanded policies and and creating success for their students. So we as African American educators, leaders, and parents, it just takes a village. And I just think access to information is something that we need to really hone in into.
Does representation play a role?
I mean, I think, yeah. When you ask if representation plays a role, and then we also talk about the importance of like transcripts here. So yes, here's I would answer that in multiple ways. In the case of my best friend, who was like a brother to me, he had good grades. You have to read the transcript and you have to compare it with the classes that actually fit into A through G slots. So there are some English classes that count as A through G, and there are some English classes that don't. It's also a way for you to make sure your kid isn't like tracked into the wrong like system of classes. We actually had an energy converter in our first year do a video explaining tracking, and he used tech as his base story. And basically, tech is an amazing public school if you have resources, if you know how to navigate. Doesn't hurt if your skin is lighter, and you get into that Paideia program and you do that, you off to the races. But if you just happen to be just another black kid, and maybe your parents don't know how to navigate, don't know how to like go into that counselor's room and say what needs to happen to get me in my kid into this network, you have a completely different experience in that school. Berkeley High as well. Berkeley High has some of the most amazing classes offered in a public school, high school setting that you're gonna get in the country. But who gets to have access to those? So yeah, representation does matter, because if you got somebody in there that's looking out for you, it can make a whole world of difference. And I'll also say this, especially since we're talking about high school kids. And let me be very clear. None of what I'm saying is about fairness. I'm not talking about fair. Everything I'm telling you is not fair, and you shouldn't have to know none of this shit if we're being honest about it. And leave the shit in there, because that's what it is. Like, as a high school kid, I didn't have the internet. I had to fight with my counselor. I got threatened to get suspended because she would not change my classes, and I just went into her office and just sat there. When you're in the 9th grade, 10th grade, you can advocate for yourself. My parents was dope fiends. My parents got clean before I got into high school, and they kind of let me do my own thing as far as school was involved, because I was a pretty good kid. But like, everybody don't have the ideal situation. I live in a Salvation Army shelter, which used to be right down there on Clay Street, and then the Henry Robinson, I was right over here. And then just in both of those shelters, man, my parents was trying to get themselves clean, take care of my little siblings. I was on my own. And so learning how to navigate this stuff and advocate for myself is the only reason. It's one of the only reasons, not the only reason, but one of the only reasons that I'm sitting here even talking to you as an entrepreneur, as a doctor, as an agitator, or whatever you want to call me, right? Like, so to my high school folks that are listening, you're not too young to advocate for yourself. Not at all. Nas wrote Illmatic at 19. I just say that, like,
Still going.
that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying, right? Like, it's a don't let age be your excuse. We just live in a time where you got a device in your pocket, man. Anybody that you admire in the world, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Maiya Edgerly, whoever you think, whatever ancestor you think is amazing, you got more knowledge in your pocket at your fingertips than they could have ever even dreamed about having. Just depend on how you use it.
That's true.
So.
And that goes back to our earlier conversation, like how we were in the age of information. Like,
Yes.
What are our scholars being exposed to on the internet? Because it's like, even with interviews like this is going to be on social media, but it's like, how do we get more scholars to see stuff like this so they can know like actually what's going on, and like how to actually, I won't say not trust their teachers and counselors, but how not to just put all their dependability a word? Well, I'm going to use that today. Their dependability on just this one person for their future if they go to college.
No, sure. You have to meet the students where they are, and most of the students right now, if we're speaking about accessibility and where they are and what their attention spans are, because their attention spans right now, in the age of social media, attention spans are being shortened and shortened day after day. and video is something that is really captivating, students' minds and everything of that nature. You have TikTok, students, little kids as little. I have a niece that's about 4 years old who's learning all these different TikTok videos and challenges and everything of that nature. But I just think right now to really get their attention is that, again, meet them where they are. Again, the age of social media, that's something that's really super important. I know with Generation Z, they're Generation Z right now. So right now they're more outspoken. I'm a millennial now. So, you just have to, just find creative ways and really just meet them where they are. And with COVID right now, with everything being virtual, it's just that creative. With one thing about Onyx Scholars, about us, the way how we were able to, really catch and connect with students is that we, with our mobile education phenomenon, the HBCU pop-up tour, we will actually go directly to the campuses. So you will actually, for kids now, kids know when people are real and when people are not. So that's the thing, and they could smell, I don't want to say the word, but they could smell BS when they see it. And that's one thing that I learned in this work, is that they could tell when you really, really want to work with them, that you really have the tangible necessities and vital necessities to really help them get to where they want to go. And the thing is, I feel like, whatever it's social media, but sometimes you have to take it there and you have to meet them. School, either at school or even, you see them passing by from the West Oakland Library. I actually live in West Oakland, so I'll, just speaking to them, and they may come across, with age of social media, a lot of these kids are, there's this miscommunication. A lot of these kids, don't know how to spark up a conversation because of the enabling of social media. So you really have to meet them where they are. And I hope that answers your question.
I agree with that. Can I push on it too? Yeah. I think you should do all of that. And look, man, if I buy you the phone and I pay the bill, and you're going to give YouTube and TikTok 3 hours, you can give me 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is, if you a parent or a sister or a friend, you can be like, look, hey, I want you to check out this video. That's 15 minutes. Have some thoughtful questions. Let's chat about it. And then you can get back to, TikToking or whatever it is that you want to do. I think we got to. So, yes, I agree with everything that you said. And I still think it's okay for parents to exercise some authority. I still think that, I still need guidance, right? Mm-hmm. If I have a master teacher teaching me anything, I don't need them to be my friend in that moment. I need them to prepare me for the thing that they're supposed to be teaching me. And I think that we're just in a time that's a time of transition where people are trying to get the pendulum right. So sometimes you overcorrect, and we still kind of at this overcorrection with social media stuff, but it'll balance out at some point. But how are you setting healthy, just boundaries for yourself, healthy boundaries for your kids, healthy boundaries for your friends? And it's the other thing. This is what we try to go the next step, right? I always ask people, what's social justice? And most people like to just use those terms. But you ask them to, explain it to me like I'm a 5th grader, and they can't do it. This is how you can tell who know what the hell they talking about and who don't, right? So social justice, I break it down into 3 letters, A, N, D. A is awareness. I need you to be aware that these systems ain't built for you, and they got something waiting for you if you don't get it together. I just need you to be aware, because it is what it is. N is for navigation. These systems are unjust, they ain't fair, they not right. But guess what? This is what our reality is right now, and I want to make sure you don't get caught in any of these holes and traps. So let me make sure you know how to navigate. But D is important, man. Duty, a sense of duty. And what that means is, if Marquise is in high school right now and I taught him how to do his A through G, and he play on the hoop team, that means that when he chilling with his homies and there's 3 or 4 of them at the lunch table, and he going through his stuff, I want him to have the duty instilled in him to be like, hey man, y'all, you cats can play ball at the next level, but you can't go if this transcript ain't right. Hey, grab your transcript, bruh. Let's go through it. I got you. You know what I'm saying? Little things like that. Those things make a huge, huge impact. So, yes, I would love for representation to be there, and I would love for people to have great transcripts. I would love for people to know how to read it. I would love for there to be great teachers and great systems and amazing camera people that come out to capture our voices and share it or whatever. But sometimes, man, you got to get that Beyonce train popping and be your own best friend. Sometimes you got to get out and be able to get it on your own.
It's true.
Literacy as well.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. You got to understand. This is what literacy is. And listen, people think that folks like us are only obsessed with test scores and all this stuff, and we want to see testing and fire teachers. I don't care about none of that, man. it's not that I care so much about the test score, it's that I know what the test score represents. I know what that number means. I know that when black boys and black girls and brown boys and brown girls test at a certain level, I know what's being built for them. I know that a certain percentage of those young people are going to die. I know a certain percentage of those people are going to be homeless. I know a certain percentage of them are going to be without a job, and some of them are going to get sick. Like, I know it because we have decades and decades and decades of data that tells us that. And so the hardest part of my job is convincing black people that they deserve better than what they see. Convincing black folks, like, there's two type of people in the restaurant, Marquise. The two types, there's the type that when their food comes and it's wrong, they just be like, you know what, it's okay. I'm gonna eat this shit. I ordered steak. I ordered steak because I'm allergic to fish and peanuts, and you gave me a plate full of fish and peanuts, but I don't want to cause disturbance. I'm happy to be in the building. And then there are people that said, you know what, I'll sacrifice and I worked, and this is the money that I paid. I wanted not just a steak, I wanted a medium rare steak. I told you I was allergic to this. I need you to fix it, I need you to credit me, or I need you to give me the boss. Yeah. And I think that those are just, I am working to instill that type of confidence, and not just confidence, man, just self-respect into the young people that we work with.
I feel like the confidence is there for some as well too, but I also feel like actually the information is very important.
Well, and when I say confidence, I'm thinking of like, I'm talking about to be informed, that you know what you're talking about,
exactly. That's what
not just bravado.
Exactly, because I feel like sometimes some parents will get that mixed up with just coming to the school and just going off.
Just
but
go.
It's just like not knowing what exactly being more intentional with what your ask is for.
But you know why that is though, bro? And I do this and people behind the camera, feel free to direct us and whatever, because now we just talking.
We're just talking.
But I feel, you know, being on a hospital board too, right? So because I was a social worker, I got this great work that I do in education. I also have this great work I do in healthcare. And here's what you learn about that, man. It's just not that I work in pediatrics, right? I'm on a board of Children's Hospital, Benioff Hospital, right? And we work with kids. And so the thing that's really important to just know when you do that, man, it's not that people like want to come in and be like, my whole body hurting, but think of it like this. I ain't had no checkups. I ain't been getting service, and everything hurts. Everything hurts, right? So when you go into that doctor and they like, where does it hurt? It all hurts, doc, and everything hurts. Well, the doctor gonna run some tests, but they also gonna give you a lollipop and some Tylenol and be like, you know, tell us where it persists. Now, if you got your whole schema, if you got your jacket, and it's like, okay, this kid is allergic to this, these are the things that have happened before. Doc, my left arm is hurting. I put ice on it. This is what's going on. This is what I'm allergic to. That doctor can now give you a more direct diagnosis. But if you've never had those type of interactions, then you coming in saying it all hurts. So when you in a school, bro, you teach at the school that I went to as a child, like that Huey P. Newton went to as a child. These people at this school wanted to put me in. I had an accent because I lived in Kentucky and Chicago before I went to Lafayette. They were gonna put me in special ed. Then I read out loud that same week, and I read better than everybody else. And then they put me in the GATE program. This is how flippant. Within 1 week, black boy almost put in special ed, put on drugs because of my accent, to being tracked and in the GATE program, so where I'm now a doctor, bro. That's how fine and how lucky that some of us have to be, man. So I get your point, right? Because I know parents probably come up with the rah-rah with it, you know what I'm saying? But when you just been feeling like you've been so wrong for so long and you don't have the language, you do what a baby does. A baby can't say, I'm hungry or I poop myself. They just cry. Yeah. Like, so don't be an educational baby. And that's not a slight. That's not a slight to anybody listening, because it's not your profession. You don't need to, you shouldn't have to know all this stuff. I'm telling you that what I'm asking you ain't fair. And if you want that black kid, boy or girl, to get the best and the most out of their education, you got to start sending some plates back.
Yes, you do.
You're going to have a lot of editing to do.
Yeah.
I said a lot.
No, I just want to just, piggyback off of what Charles had to say about,
In my 10 minutes.
No, that is A-okay. Take as much time as you need. No, this is something to vent about. And this is something that, we've been going through for just decades in the education industry as far as our kids are concerned. I just want to just piggyback off and just giving my personal story. I was quiet growing up. I didn't really speak that much. I spoke like at the age, I started speaking at the age of 3, but I remember being in a Catholic school in Richmond. I attended St. Cornelius, and there was a teacher, and I was very soft-spoken, didn't speak too much in class or volunteer myself in class. And I remember, I was sent home with a letter, and it was just saying, I remember having to be sat down too as well because, I didn't speak. And it was, the crazy thing about it is that the teacher thought that I couldn't read. And then, it wasn't then to my mom, she being the executive director of a nonprofit of Girls Incorporated. I was actually raised in a nonprofit, just putting that out there too. But she actually advocated, she went to the school and met and served on the board and actually became a part of the board too as well. And actually went to that first grade teacher, my Miss Closet. That was her name, Miss Closet. And she was just like, you know what, my daughter could read. Have you ever asked her to read? Did you? And she said no. And then she said, that's the problem. You never asked her to read. She reads here at home. So you just, and they put me in like these special ed classes where I would just paint. I was just, obsolete and just basically just on the outskirts of the classroom. And it really felt demeaning. It was demeaning. And here, if it wasn't for my mom advocating for me, I would still be in that room, painting. And then when she finally asked me, I read. And that's when she found out I could read. But again, you could come up to the classrooms and to the schools and hoorah and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is that you have to know what you're talking about. You have to, and then again, it's that language. And, you being able, and again, that was such a great indication in the hospital about saying how you're hurting. But if you don't give them details on how you're hurting, you're just going to be, suffering in the system. So I just think that, again, it starts at home. We can advocate as education leaders as much as we want. But again, it all starts at home.
Exactly. And so with us closing, I know sometimes when we have these discussions and the people who see it, it's like as if we're preaching to the choir, people who already know this information. What is some advice that y'all can give to other parents to actually educate their friends that they see may need some education in this area? How do we encourage those parents, and what are some steps that they can take to educate their friends on, like basically coming to the school and showing advocacy for their students?
Want me to take this one?
If you want to go first, you go right ahead. See, this is the part I said, Marquis. Let us know who answering the question, Keith.
Listen. You know what? I just think.
Just restate the.
So the question, the advice that I would give, parents as far as this community on I just say, just get involved in the students' education. I think that's the thing that's going to really break down a lot of barriers. Barriers are going to still be there, right, in this system. There's some things we can fix and some things that we can't fix. But I just think that showing up, not only showing up, but actually, doing the research, getting involved in organizations like Energy Converters and Onyx Scholars, and really just being involved with and being educated about the mission and really being around like-minded. And two, you have to be uncomfortable to get comfortable. And it's going to be, we have to, in Oakland, California, even though there's not too many of African-American families that are here, we need to get whoever we have left here in the area, and we need to rally and get back to the way things used to be, where there were parents showing up to the school board meetings who were, making sure that District 3 supervisors were, basically showing that representation. I think we just need to get back to where, because Oakland used to be a place where there were people in the church involved in politics. There were people showing up for all involved in the school boards and just PTA boards, just all of that. I just think that in this new age of parents, the only thing that I would say is just get involved in your students' education. Because again, with Onyx Scholars, our motto is education is a passport to the future, and that was derived from Malcolm X. And that's something that I feel that, we need to take this very seriously. And I think with this new age of parents, we need to, not only get back to the basics, but to show up and get involved.
I thought that was really good. Thank you. See, I'm glad you went first. Thank you, Marquise. If you're asking, if the question is around how do we get parents to support or push other parents to be involved, I think there's a few different things. I think Maya answered it really well, so everything that she said I would echo. I think there's a few other very simple things. Like if there are other parents that got kids that's the same age and they in school together, in class together, make some friends. It's easier to go about this with a crew as opposed to being by yourself. So if the three of us are parents and the three of us got kids in the same class, maybe Marquise and Maya can't make it to this meeting, but I can make it and I can represent for all three of us. We can do this together. It's easier to digest when you got somebody. It's easier to deal with when you know somebody else is going through it and you don't think that you're crazy. See, this system will make you think that you're crazy, that you're a horrible parent and all this. And I'm not trying to absolve parents or anybody, right? Like I think you said that it starts at home. Sometimes home ain't a good starting place. It's a whole bunch of other stuff that I was learning at home. You know what I'm saying? And it is what it is. I think that's one. I think two, you ain't got to be an expert at this stuff. I do, but always remember you are the expert on your child. Now, you might not be able to teach better than that person or these people that have these expertise in these places, but don't give your power away. You have to see yourself as the quarterback of this team. It don't move without you. You know what I mean? Like you can be coach or quarterback, but you gotta be calling some shots around what you want. And then but the other thing is, the first thing that goes, man, is your imagination and ability to dream. So when you in it, I remember living in that shelter, fam, and staring at the ceiling, it would smell like bleach because it was the 90s and they were teaching people how to clean their needles because they didn't want AIDS to spread and shit. And I remember being there and I remember daydreaming about, one day I'm gonna own a company and I'm gonna be able to get up and fly whenever I want to do that, and I'm gonna make good money and I'm just not gonna worry about this stuff. And then I'm gonna buy all the cereal I want because I used to like cereal and my parents don't let me buy the shit. But that dream and daydreaming and escaping to that place mentally did so much for me. So the advice I would give parents, with other parents and with kids, do what I call the dream exercise. Ask a kid, tell me your happiest future. What do you want life to be like for you when you're 40? What is the best possible outcome? And then I make that young person give me as much detail as possible, whether they writing it, they talking it, they want to make a song or do a picture. But I need them to really escape and think about themselves in their most positive place. If the bar is low, I'm gonna do my best to raise the bar with them as a parent. But also, now I have a baseline of what my kid wants to do, and I got something to work backwards from. If I can do that with my kid and y'all doing that, and we having talks about it, now we making decisions about going to Onyx together. We making decisions about, we're gonna go to high school here together. Do you know that even if three in tune families went to the worst school, that their kids would do better? So I just think parents and black folks have way more power than what they think. I have a ton of advice. That was just more so a broad stroke that can kind of fit all age groups. But I think if you're getting into high school kids versus elementary kids, it gets a little different. But those would be three salient points, I think, that could be really helpful. And just lower the burden on you as a parent, man. Split that thing on up.
Alright, so again, Maya, Charles, I appreciate y'all for joining. This is Community Voice, and that's your word.
That's what's up, brother.